The evening air was unusually brisk as I stood by the window, watching the cab pull away. The bright city lights cast a shadow over my face, reflecting a storm of emotions within. After a week-long business trip to Paris, Sarah had finally returned, exhausted but seemingly relieved to be home. As she trudged towards the bedroom, her steps were heavy, her usual vibrant demeanor subdued. "Love, I'm just wiped. I'll sort out the unpacking tomorrow," she mumbled, barely managing a smile. Her eyes, usually so clear and present, now dodged mine as she hurried into the sanctuary of our bedroom. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Rest up, I'll handle the suitcase," I offered, my voice steady despite the unease that tugged at my heart. As Sarah's soft snores began to echo through the quiet of our apartment, I wheeled her suitcase into the living room. The click of the latch seemed louder in the silence, and as I flipped the top open, my hands were unexpectedly shaky. Buried beneath the usual tangle of business attire and toiletries was an unfamiliar velvet pouch, heavy and out of place. I drew in a sharp breath as I loosened the drawstring, revealing a small collection of intimate gifts, a fine bottle of perfume, a silk scarf, and a folded note, the handwriting unmistakably masculine and unknown to me. To many more secret getaways, the note read, signed with a flourish, J. The world seemed to still as I sat back on my heels, the note crumpling in my tightening fist. The betrayal stung sharply, a visceral pain that seemed to mock the trust and love I had poured into our marriage. I spent the night on the couch, a storm brewing within me as I plotted my next moves. Morning light spilled into the room, casting a harsh glare on the remnants of my shattered trust scattered around me. Sarah emerged, refreshed and unaware, her smile returning as she approached me with a cup of coffee. "Good morning," she chirped, leaning in for a kiss, which I mechanically returned, my mind racing. "Morning," I replied, my voice flat. "How was Paris? Anything out of the ordinary happen?" I watched her closely, searching for any flicker of guilt. She paused, a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. "It was all meetings and conferences, you know how it is," she answered too quickly, avoiding my gaze as she set the coffee down. I nodded slowly, the plan crystallizing in my mind. "I see," I said, my voice calm, belying the storm within. "Well, I'm glad you're back." As she turned to the kitchen, I knew what I had to do. The foundation of our love had cracked, and from those fractures, a dark resolve had taken root. I would not let this betrayal go unanswered. Revenge, cold and calculated, would be my new companion as I dismantled the life we had built together, piece by piece. As the chapter of trust ended, a new, darker chapter beckoned, promising justice in the shadows of betrayal. The days following Sarah's return were charged with a silent tension, like the calm before a storm. I maintained a facade of normalcy, my smiles carefully placed, my conversations meticulously neutral. Meanwhile, the seed of betrayal grew into a looming shadow that followed me through each meticulously normal day. One Tuesday evening, as Sarah prepared for another business dinner, I watched her from the doorway of our bedroom. Her reflection in the mirror was flawless, her dress a perfect shade of midnight blue that I knew wasn't from her usual collection. "That's a new dress, isn't it?" I asked, leaning against the frame, my tone light but probing. She glanced at me through the mirror, her lipstick poised mid-air. "Oh, this? I got it in Paris. Do you like it?" Her voice was casual, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of nervousness. "It's beautiful." "Suits you," I replied, my heart hardening as I added silently, "like betrayal suits you too." She smiled, turning to face me, the unease momentarily masked by practiced grace. "I'm glad you think so." "I won't be late tonight," she said, reaching out to adjust my tie, a touch I almost recoiled from. "I'll be here," I stated, a double entendre hidden beneath the simplicity of the words. After she left, the real work began. I retreated to my office, pulling up my laptop and diving into the digital depths of Sarah's recent life. Hours of searching through emails and credit card statements painted a clear picture of deceit. Every clue solidified my resolve and fueled the meticulous planning of my retribution. The sound of the door at midnight signaled her return. I closed the laptop, the screen's glow dying as I faced the darkness of our living room, waiting. "Hey, I didn't expect you to be up," Sarah said, her voice slightly slurred, a hint of surprise coloring her words as she flicked on the light. "I couldn't sleep," I replied coolly, watching as she placed her keys on the table, her movements slightly unsteady. She approached, leaning down to kiss me, but I turned my cheek, offering a cold profile. "Is everything all right?" she asked, her brow furrowing, sensing the shift. "Everything's fine," I said, standing up to stretch the truth as I stretched my arms. "Just thinking about some changes. Maybe it's time we thought about where we're heading. Both together and apart." Her eyes widened, confusion and fear mingling in the dim light. "What do you mean? Are you saying?" I cut her off with a wave of my hand. "Not tonight, Sarah. It's late, and we're both tired. Let's talk tomorrow." As she retreated to the bedroom, confusion etched in her every step, I turned back to the dark window. The reflection showed a man changed, the contours of vengeance reshaping my resolve. I knew what had to be done. The next steps were clear, each one leading to an inevitable end. As the night deepened, so did the shadows in our home, hiding the depth of my planning from the woman who thought she knew me best. Tomorrow, the storm would break, and I would be ready to steer its course. The morning light spilled into the kitchen, casting long shadows across the floor where I stood, brewing coffee with deliberate calm. The sound of Sarah's cautious footsteps approached from the hallway, a tentative echo in the tense silence of our apartment. "Morning," she said, her voice softer than usual, the night's confusion still hanging between us. I turned, handing her a mug with a steady hand. "Morning. Did you sleep well?" Her fingers brushed against mine as she took the cup, a touch that once would have warmed me but now felt cold. "Not really. You seemed off last night. Is everything okay?" I leaned against the counter, my gaze fixed on her, weighing my words. "We need to talk, Sarah. There's something important." Her eyes searched mine, a flicker of fear passing through them. "Okay, talk then," she replied, her voice steady but her hands betraying her, gripping the mug tightly. I took a deep breath, the script of confrontation rehearsed 100 times in my mind now unfolding. "I know about Jean-Marc, Sarah. I know about Paris, the gifts, the secret getaways." The color drained from her face, her facade crumbling as the truth hit her like a physical blow. "How?" "I saw the note, the gifts. I've seen the emails, the reservations." "How long has it been going on?" My voice was calm, but each word was a hammer, striking down the walls of deceit she had built. She sank into a chair, her defenses dissolving into panic. I'm so sorry, I never wanted." "Save it," I cut her off, my resolve hardening. "I don't want excuses. I want the truth." Sarah's eyes welled with tears, her composure breaking as she faced the ruins of our trust. "It started last year. I thought it was just I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was going to end it." "Were you?" My skepticism was palpable. "Or were you waiting for the right time, a time that never comes in affairs?" She wiped her eyes, struggling to regain some semblance of dignity. "What are you going to do?" My next words were cold, clinical. "I want a divorce, Sarah. I've already spoken to a lawyer. I'll make sure this ends swiftly, and you'll leave with what you came into this marriage with. Nothing more." Her shock was overtaken by a sudden surge of anger. You think you can just throw me out over this? This isn't just a simple mistake, Sarah. It's a betrayal of everything we promised each other. I've given you everything, and you've given me lies. It's over." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the tile. "I'll fight you on this. You won't get away with destroying my life over this." I watched her storm out of the kitchen, her indignation a stark contrast to the calm that settled over me. The confrontation had set the stage for the coming legal battle, a necessary storm to clear the way for a new beginning. As the door slammed behind her, I turned back to the window, the early light now fully illuminating the kitchen. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in months, I felt a grim sense of purpose. The first shots had been fired and the battle lines drawn. The war of retribution was underway, and I was ready to see it through to its bitter end. The days that followed were a blur of legal documents, terse meetings, and silent preparations. My apartment, once filled with the laughter and warmth of shared dreams, now echoed with the hollow sound of an impending storm. Each step in my calculated plan brought me closer to the endgame, the final act of retribution that would sever the ties of betrayal forever. I sat in my office, the glow of the computer screen illuminating the meticulous records of Sarah's deceit, emails, receipts, photographs, a dossier of betrayal. My fingers paused over the keyboard, a momentary hesitation before I dialed the number that would unleash the final blow. The phone rang, cutting through the silence, and a calm voice answered, "Hello?" "Jean-Marc," I began, my voice cold and unyielding. "We need to meet." There was a pause, a flicker of confusion. "Who is this?" "Sarah's husband," I replied, letting the title hang heavily between us. The hesitation was palpable. "Okay, where and when?" "The park, by the fountain." 1 hour. I hung up without waiting for a confirmation, confident in the gravity of my words. As I approached the designated spot, I saw him, confident, unsuspecting, waiting by the fountain. His stance changed as he recognized me from the photos he must have seen, a slight unease creeping into his posture. "You must be Jean-Marc," I said as I approached, my voice devoid of warmth. "Yes." "And you're Sarah's husband. I assume you know." "I know everything," I confirmed, stepping closer, my every word measured. "And so will everyone else." His confusion turned to concern. "What do you mean?" "This," I said, handing him a thick envelope. "Go ahead, see for yourself." He hesitated, then pulled out the contents, a series of photographs and messages, not just of him and Sarah, but doctored images and fabricated messages that painted a more sinister picture. His face blanched as he flipped through the papers. "This isn't true," he protested, his voice rising in panic. "It doesn't have to be," I said quietly. "By the time I'm done, your reputation, your career will be ruined. Consider it collateral damage." "Why are you doing this?" His voice cracked, the veneer of control shattered. "Because betrayal begets betrayal," I replied, my voice hard as stone. "And deceit deserves no less." He looked around desperately, realizing the futility of his situation. "You can't just destroy someone's life like this." "I can, and I have," I said, turning to leave, the finality of the moment settling around us like a cold fog. The next morning, the story exploded across social media and news outlets, a scandal involving corruption, infidelity, and deceit, all expertly woven by my hand to leave no trace back to me. Sarah's and Jean-Marc's professional and personal lives unraveled swiftly, the public spectacle ensuring there was no coming back. When Sarah confronted me, her eyes were hollow, her spirit broken. "You destroyed everything." "Why?" "You chose this path when you decided to betray me," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "I just ensured we walked to the end of it." With that, I left the ruins of what was once our life behind, the door closing with a resolute click. The victory was hollow, the taste of revenge bitter, but necessary. As I walked away, the sky above seemed to open, a cleansing rain washing away the remnants of a past life, leaving only the road ahead clear and unwelcomed. Betrayal had led us here, and hatred had driven us apart, forever severing what was once bound by love. The final act of retribution was complete, as ruthless as it was definitive.